Talk a little bit about improved feed conversions, because for me this is something we spend a lot of time and going forward, if we're going to be successful, I think it's probably one of the big drivers. There's some things going on there. Genetics will play a big role if we've fitted genetics into our system appropriately, I think. Some of the work that's happening there with genomics, gene markers, etc., sex semen, I think they're all great tools, and we're certainly aggressive on those. I think understanding cow comfort's something that's become somewhat of a must going forward, and I really think that's in relation to whether you're a grazing dairy or an intensive operation or somewhere in between. I mean, a more comfortable cow is more productive. It's as simple as that, and I think that's where we need to be. I think we need to sometimes take a step backwards from some of the whiz-bang additives, etc., and just make sure our cows are comfortable. I think it has a huge benefit. So, balanced TMR feeding, I think certainly in our operation that's how we work, and the detail that's applied there, I mean, we would be reviewing rations weekly, we would have feed analysed weekly, and certainly there's a whole bunch of new technology in how to feed cows that's coming out all the time. I think that will continue. Individual cow management software, I've grouped that there into improved feed conversions, because I think some of these tools really do help us to manage cows on an individual level, even as we do start to get a bit of scale. I would have guys who work for me, pretty much know 2,000 cows, and the only reason is they've got the information at hand, or they're flagged through, automatic draft or whatever it might be. So I think some of that stuff all does, and it seems a little silly to line it there, but those tools really help us to do things like keep our reproduction lined up, keep cows in the right stage of lactation, where they're most productive, etc. So all trying to get more milk per kilogram of feed, which I think long term is going to be a good result. On-farm sustainability issues, something I think will be huge going forward. I think improved plant varieties certainly going to play a role. New irrigation technologies, things like drip irrigation, certainly things that we are working with. I don't think yields of an extra 20% of crop for the same amount of water is certainly achievable, or whether it be a conversion of flood irrigation to pivot or whatever. I think we've got to sharpen up on our water use. Humified compost is probably a sustainability initiative that we're working on at the moment. We're basically composting all our cow manure. We're combining it with straw. We're really looking to return carbon to the soil, improve the microbiology of the soil that we're working with. Seems to be working extremely well. We're in our second year now. And then I think probably the big one, the waste to energy technology. I just back from the US last week. Been following these technologies probably for the last 3 years. Just some huge opportunity here. I guess a dairy of my size could probably power conservatively about 750 kilowatt engine 24/7. And to put that in perspective, that's 3 or 4 times the power it takes me to run my operation. So we're returning energy back to the grid. So essentially capturing the methane in some type of vessel, generating the power. I think the other big thing is also some of the things they're achieving with the waste streams out the back end of that process. They're actually, basically getting back to some pure liquid nitrogen forms now, which will go on through fertigation. The manure's already been through a mineralisation process, so more available to the plant. So pretty good hedge for some of us farmers against what might happen in the fertiliser market, and also I think from a sustainability, environmental and also perception perspective, a pretty good move if we can make the numbers work. So talk a little bit about dairy ownership. I think from my perspective, farms I think will get bigger as we try and achieve some scale to remain competitive. I think that trend will continue unless we see some very different signals from the market. I think corporate money will continue to flow to the sector. Have some question marks about ownership horizons as some of these new structures emerge. I mean, being 4th generation of family operations, a lot of these initiatives we're talking about are very long term, particularly some of the sustainability stuff. Other ownership horizons of these potential investors the same as ours? Will those projects get the same priorities? I think it does appear challenging to align some investor interest to traditional agricultural returns, and I think also something which we're seeing is that it is difficult to get investors to have a level of comfort to take on pure operational risk. Plenty of people want to own land and water, but there's only a handful that want to play in the operational game, which us farmers do. Dairy automation, stole this photo off the internet, but I think it's fairly valid for us. I mean, as competition increases for labour and also just the genuine cost of labour in Australia, I think some of this automation stuff has a big future. I'll skip the cow management stuff, I've already talked about it, but I think robotics in general, picture there's of obviously the new robotic rotary, which is over in Europe. There's some pilot projects in Australia. I think as we move forward to be competitive, we're really going to have to get a hold of some of these technologies. I think they can be cost effective, and I do like the notion that they don't get sick, they don't get hurt, and they don't run late. So looking forward to some of that stuff. Stronger focus on people. Bigger farms mean you have more people. For me, dairy's all about detail. I think there still is, as we achieve this detail, and that becomes a bigger challenge as you have more people involved, and it's not just your traditional family members. There's always a notion no one can do it as good as you, and that's probably right. But I think going forward, we've got to learn how to maintain this detail. Something we're seeing, a lot of the new technologies are probably demanding a high level of skills, or certainly a high level of training. I mean, guys who drive tractors now have to be able to operate GPS. I don't have a herdsman who can't use a computer. I don't have a manager who doesn't have email on them. Certainly those things, and I think, financially we've got to be a bit sharper as well. So just a higher level of skills all throughout the business is going to be necessary if we're going to stay competitive. I think the other point I wanted to make, increasing levels of compliance right across HR are making it more challenging. They're meaning we're spending more time on this. I'll give the example there. I've got a sister who is, I'm a bit lost here, but she must be 31 years of age, so went to university 12 or 13 years ago, studied to be a veterinarian, which she is. She has almost finished her HR degree now and would spend 90% of her time focused on HR and 10% on genuine veterinary activities. The amount of time we spend on employee manuals, motivation, staff reviews, whatever it is, it's huge. It does pay dividends, I think, and I think going forward, but going forward we've got to be aware of the cost of that and make sure it fits in and we can still achieve our margin. Where we've been in 5 to 10 years, who knows? I was supposed to come here and give you an answer, but I really don't have one. We operate a marginal business that's constantly evolving, and I think all the things I've spoken about, we just need to keep our finger on those and make sure it evolves in the direction that we want. I think we will need to become more professional. It'll become more corporate as we do chase scale. It is one means to reduce our costs. I think it will become more global in terms of our markets and the way we source our information and technology. I mean, the internet's a great thing. You can seem to find out stuff pretty quick, and you can seem to buy stuff from all around the world in a heartbeat these days, and I think that is changing, some of the geographical challenges which we once had. I think the other big thing for us, and something that we're looking at, I think we will be more integrated into other key markets, energy, carbon, and water. Closing comments. It's it's an exciting yet potentially uncertain era for agriculture. What will come of carbon trading? What will evolve in China or other developing countries? When will food security become a priority in developed countries? Will it become a priority? How will the domestic sale of milk play out in the retail market? Can we convince consumers to pay more for our product? I think efficient and sustainable agricultural production is a long-term commitment and investment. In best practice, it requires a clear price signal from our market and probably some certainty of government policy. But I want to leave you guys, I think many Australian farmers are leaders in their fields, and the opportunities to grow rural Australia are quite huge, so looking forward to it. Thank you.